Welcome into Outkick the Show. I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis. I hope wherever you may find yourself across this country or across this great world, you are having a fantastic Monday unpacking the results of college football and the NFL, like me and like so many others of us around this great land. Welcome into Outkick the Show. I am wearing LSU colors this morning because the Bayou Bengals are the best team in the land. I won Lock It In this week, and I am taking them as my futures bet. You will see in a little over an hour at 7-1 to win the national championship through Fox Bet. But we will get to that in a moment. I will explain exactly everything surrounding the college football playoff picture. Let me tell you what we're hitting. The college football playoff picture, my top 10, the SEC Power Rankings, NFL reactions, World Series boobs, baby, and Joe Flacco being benched for for very suspicious reasons after he criticized play calling against the Denver Broncos in their game versus the Colts. But we begin with the college football playoff picture, and I want to see everybody react right now. Who do you think is the best team in college football? Fire away with your answer right now as to who you think the best team is in college football. In the meantime, let me explain exactly what the landscape of the college football playoff looks like right now, going across the entire country. I think I do, humbly, a better job of explaining the college football playoff picture than anybody in the entirety of the country, okay? And so let me start on the East Coast, work my way across the country, and explain where we are in the wake of a third straight massive upset. 2 weeks ago, we had Georgia lose at home to South Carolina. Then Wisconsin lost to Illinois. A couple days ago, Oklahoma went down to Kansas State. So what does it mean? Let's start with the ACC. Clemson is in the playoff. If they go 13-0, that's it. I think if Clemson loses a single game, because the overall ACC is weaker than any Power 5 conference has ever been in the playoff era, Clemson will not get a playoff bid. So they are going to be massive favorites, 17 or points or more the rest of the way. They go 13-0 and advance to the playoff, or if they lose it all, they're not going to the playoff. Okay, that is the ACC. In the Big Ten, there are 3 teams still alive that can make the college football playoff. They are Ohio State, Penn State, and Minnesota. Interestingly, Ohio State's game against Michigan really doesn't matter at all if Ohio State beats Penn State. And Penn State's game against Minnesota really doesn't matter at all in another 2 weeks either if they beat Ohio State, because the rest of their schedules are so easy. The Big Ten East is going to be decided by Ohio State against Penn State. And whoever ends up winning that game will likely be the Big Ten's representative in the playoff. There's a possibility, if total chaos emerged, that 11-1 Penn State and let's say 13-0 Ohio State could get in, or 13-0 Penn State and 11-1 Ohio State. I don't think that's very likely, but those are the teams that are still alive in the Big Ten. In the SEC, you have got 4 teams alive, and I believe there will be 2 SEC teams that will make the college football playoff. Those 4 SEC teams that are still alive, 2 of them play this weekend, Georgia and Florida. Whoever loses the Georgia-Florida game is out. They are out of the playoff race, and frankly, they're probably out of the SEC East race. So one of those 2 teams will be gone after the cocktail party. Georgia has opened as a 3.5 or 4-point favorite in that game. Okay, that is one that is worth paying attention to this weekend. That's the biggest game of the weekend in college football. It's a default play-in game to keep one team alive. The other side of the equation, both teams have byes, LSU and Alabama. I think the odds are that LSU and Alabama will both end up making the college football playoff if LSU loses to Alabama in Tuscaloosa in 2 weeks. What will happen is LSU will then beat Ole Miss, Arkansas, and Texas A&M, the latter two of those games at home in Baton Rouge, and will post at 11-1 the best overall record in the entirety of the one-loss universe, okay? If Alabama loses, I still think Alabama gets in, but I think 11-1 Alabama doesn't have as good of a resume as 11-1 LSU, because LSU will have beaten Florida, they will have beaten Texas, and they will have beaten Auburn, which are 3 wins better than any 2 wins Alabama can produce if Alabama were to lose to LSU, okay? 13-0 team gets in. Possibility that Georgia or Florida could sneak their way in by winning out, going 12-1 and beating 12-0 Alabama or 12-0 LSU. That also opens the door potentially to 3 different teams being able to potentially get in from the SEC before all is said and done. You don't have to take it from me. I wrote it yesterday. The odds markets have come out now, and the odds markets have reflected that I am correct, that there are big favorites on both LSU and Alabama being able to advance to the playoff. In the Big 12, I think Oklahoma's in trouble. I think Oklahoma, the only team that could definitely get in from the Big 12, 13-0 Baylor is in. I think 12-1 Oklahoma is going to have an inferior resume to 11-1 LSU or to 12-1 Georgia or to 12-1 Alabama, whatever breakdown you want to give there. The Big 12's in trouble. I don't think they're going to get a team in the playoff unless Baylor goes 13-0. There simply aren't enough quality wins remaining for Oklahoma. In the Pac-12, similarly, you've got a big boulder on top of the head of Oregon and also on top of the head of Utah. In particular, Oregon lost to Auburn, and Auburn's likely to be the 5th best team in the SEC this year. Auburn is likely to go 8-4 this year. If that ends up being true, that Auburn goes 8-4, I don't see how Oregon could in any way fight their way in as a one-loss team, because the other one-loss teams in the SEC probably would have beaten Auburn. So that is where we are as we look at the landscape of college football. If I were betting right now, the 4 most likely playoff teams, I believe, are in no particular order: Alabama, Ohio State, LSU, and Clemson. No particular order. I believe the 4 college football playoff teams, let me repeat it: Alabama, LSU, Ohio State, and Clemson will likely be the 4 playoff teams. All right. What about the my national top 10? How about my national top 10 at Outkick? Here is my top 10. SMU is not going to make the college football playoff. Stop. Nor is Appalachian State. Nor is Minnesota. Nor is Baylor. Stop with all your ridiculousness there. The national top 10. LSU number 1. Ohio State number 2. Alabama number 3. Penn State number 4. Clemson number 5. Florida in the 6th spot. Georgia in the 7th spot. Again, they play this weekend and the loser is bumped out. Oklahoma 8. Auburn 9. And Oregon 10. No, the LSU-Alabama loser is not out. Do not be stupid, all right? I am the expert here, all right? If you are arguing that the LSU-Alabama loser is out of the playoff, you are an ignoramus, unfit for common parlance in the universe of college football. The only way the Alabama-LSU loser is out is if the Alabama-LSU loser loses another game. Otherwise, they will both be in the mix, and I believe will both be making the college football playoff. This is a ludicrous position to be arguing. All of you who are arguing it are imbeciles, unfit for common discourse in the college football playoff. It is not true that either of them is going to be out with a loss. In particular, if LSU were to lose, a close game in Tuscaloosa, they would have by far the best resume in college football at 11-1. The only way LSU could end up getting bumped out in that scenario is if Georgia or Florida won the SEC at 12-1, upsetting Alabama, 12-0 Alabama, in the SEC title game, and then Alabama would get in at 12-1, losing the SEC title game over 11-1 LSU, and certainly 12-1 Georgia or Florida would get in. It's more, stop with this. I'm going to block you. I hate more than anything stupid people who say, if you don't win your conference, you shouldn't get in the college football playoff. It's harder to win the SEC than it is to win the national championship many years. All right? 5 of the top 10 teams in college football are in the SEC. The presumption that if you don't win your conference, you shouldn't be playing for the playoffs, shouldn't be playing in the playoffs, is insanely stupid. It doesn't exist in any other sport. Champions don't win their conference all the time in the NFL. Champions don't win their conference all the time in the NHL. Champions don't win their conference all the time in the NCAA basketball championship. Champions don't win their conference all the time in Major League Baseball. Conference, division titles, whatever you are, you're an idiot if you make that argument. I want to repeat it again. You are an idiot, all right? Period. Sometimes an 11-1 team is the best team in college football. Hello, did you not watch Alabama at 11-1, not winning its championship run to the title a couple of years ago? Sometimes a team loses and they're still the best. Stop being dumb, all right? Just stop being dumb. All right, NFL reactions. I want to run through some NFL reactions, but I want to start with one play that deserved a ton of attention and got almost none. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers got completely screwed on a ridiculous decision by Mike Vrabel to go for a fake field goal up 4 with 3.5 minutes to go against Tampa Bay. The play there is to kick the 45 or 46-yard field goal, go up 7, and wait on Jameis Winston to turn the ball over to you again, which he did multiple times in this game. Instead, Vrabel runs the best player on the Titans team, the punter, gets him decked. Brett Kern, because he's not usually running with the football, fumbles it. Inexplicably, one of the officials blows his whistle and stops a Tampa Bay Buccaneer scoop and score touchdown, which would have potentially won the Tampa Bay Buccaneers the game. It's the latest evidence that Mike Vrabel isn't able to make good decisions on the sideline. He's making it less likely that his team wins games, but that is an awful decision. You have a 4th and 2. If you're going to go for it, leave your offense on the field. If you're going to attempt the field goal, that's fine. But do not run a fake with your punter, get him lit up, and have a scoop and score get avoided only because of official total incompetence. If you are a fan of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you should be livid over this. And I think the NFL's failure to address stupidity like this. Let me tell you a story. I played as a referee. I got to work as a referee at the Alabama spring game probably like a decade ago. And the one rule they told us was, don't blow your whistle. You can almost fix anything in a game with instant replay if you just don't blow your whistle and stop the play. The play there for an official is to not blow the whistle and you will be fine. They would have been able to review it. We had a clean pickup. We had a clean score there. It was absurd. So that was utterly incompetent. All right, I want to hit that as well, but I want that to be understood because that's literally the first thing you tell any official. Don't blow your whistle. That's all you have to do. You can fix almost any error if you just don't blow your whistle, all right? Yet the NFL has got so many bad officials that they can't manage to avoid making that error. I don't understand it one iota. All right, what did we learn from all the games that took place over the weekend? I'm going to go in reverse order. Aaron Rodgers, he's back to being Aaron Rodgers, people. 9 touchdowns in the past 2 weeks. He is utterly phenomenal right now. Matt Moore played fine. I don't have any major concerns about the Kansas City Chiefs, but the Packers in the NFC are on fire. Let me go back to Jameis Winston for a minute, too. Jameis Winston has turned the ball over 10 times in the past 2 weeks. 10 turnovers. So far this season, in 7 games, he has thrown 12 interceptions and he has fumbled the ball 8 times. That means Jameis Winston has nearly averaged 3 turnovers per game since he has been the starter in this Bruce Arians offense. The dude is no good. I feel bad for Bucs fans because they had the issue with the fumble, but I also feel bad for them because I can't imagine what it's like to watch Jameis Winston be this bad. Mike Evans probably is the best wide receiver in the entirety of the NFL. And Jameis Winston is so bad that he has to deal with him as his quarterback. He's awful. I mean, he threw at least 5 balls that could have been intercepted against the Titans. I'm not kidding. It's not a hyperbole. They had a couple of balls that were dropped. I mean, maybe 6. I mean, it's almost like every single throw he has is awful. He is so bad. I don't know what Bruce Arians is thinking, not really having a backup for him, but he is truly atrocious. I mean, absolutely awful. Texans, what a play by DeShaun Watson to win this game. He got kicked in the face, couldn't see out of one eye, pulled out of a tackle, gunned the ball into the end zone. I love DeShaun Watson and what he is doing for the Texans. What a phenomenal performance by him. Texans are sitting at 5-3. If the playoffs started today in the AFC, your 2 wild cards would be the Bills, who I don't think are any good, and the Texans, who I think could be really good. By the way, J.J. Watt out for the rest of the season. All right? So that in and of itself, happened to look down, somebody complaining about topics, dead, gone forever. Browns-Patriots. Browns-Patriots, to me, is evidence that Freddie Kitchens is in completely over his head. All right? Completely over his head is Freddie Kitchens. He did something I've never seen a coach do before. On a 4th and 11, he was so disorganized on the sideline that he sent his punt team out and had them intentionally false start so he could ensure that he could go for it on 4th and 16 from like his own 25-yard line. And Baker Mayfield got decked on that play. The 2 worst quarterbacks so far this season in the NFL who have started 4 games or more, Baker Mayfield and Jameis Winston. If Baker Mayfield was anything other than the number 1 overall draft pick, and probably the same thing is true of Jameis Winston, they wouldn't be getting opportunities like they're getting opportunities right now. They are both atrocious for their teams. The San Francisco 49ers, a lot of people said they were sort of a fraudulent 6-0 because they only beat the Redskins 9-0. Well, guess what? They hung 51 on the Carolina Panthers to get to 7-0 for only the 2nd time in their history as a franchise. You know how good those 49ers were back in the Joe Montana and Steve Young and Jerry Rice and Taylor days. The fact that they've only been 7-0 twice before is extraordinary. The NFC is just so utterly stacked when you look at the overall talent in this situation. That was phenomenal. I'll tell you this right now. How about Gardner Minshew? Gardner Minshew has been extraordinary beyond belief so far this year for a 6th-round pick. To be as good as he is for the Jacksonville Jaguars, who have now surged to 4-4, I got to give props to the Jags mascot. How about the Jags mascot coming out dressed as a ghost so Sam Darnold would be there and see him as a ghost? That was one of the great moves that I've seen a mascot make, maybe in forever. Absolutely extraordinary how good Gardner Minshew has been to get to 4-4. I think there's a legitimate question. about whether or not we've got a Wally Pipp situation for Nick Foles, whether Nick Foles is ever going to be able to come back and take over this job, even though he's made $22 million. We'll see what happens with the Texans coming on the road against the Jags. Jags have 3 straight games in division, Colts, Titans, and Jags. Colts, Titans, Texans, all in the next 3. We'll see what happens there. The Saints, Drew Brees, I think the best team in the NFC right now is the New Orleans Saints. That's amazing. Playing Ghostbusters is also incredible. By the way, Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield have both fallen off the reservation. Sam Darnold threw 3 more interceptions against the Jags. He's a mess, an absolute mess. How about Drew Brees? Guy hurts his thumb. He's out for whatever it is, 5 weeks, comes back in, almost throws for 400 yards, absolutely kills it. Saints are the best team in the NFC. And while the Cardinals are improving, they're not ready for prime time yet. The Rams, nobody can cover Cooper Kupp. The Bengals are awful. They're in competition with the Dolphins to see who's going to be the worst quarterback, the first team to be able to take a quarterback in the draft. The Rams, I didn't think were that great necessarily, but Cooper Kupp was unable to be defended. Huge, huge game from him. The Colts, props all around to Jacoby Brissett, who made an incredible play when it looked like he was going to get sacked for a safety, rolled out, threw the ball all the way down the field to T.Y. Hilton, set up a 51-yard game-winning field goal for Adam Vinatieri. I'm still not sold that the Colts are that good in the grand scheme of things in terms of being able to win games in the playoffs. But I got to tell you this. What about Joe Flacco suddenly having a neck injury immediately after he comes out and questions the play calling? If you saw the way the Packers game ended on Sunday night, 3rd and 5, they design a play, hit the first down, throw it, risk the incompletion and the clock stopping, get the first down, take a knee, the game's over. 3rd and 5, the Broncos run it, force the Colts to take their last time out, and then punt. I don't understand why you wouldn't give your team an opportunity on 3rd and 5 to throw the ball and go for the win. Joe Flacco points out that very basic statement, and now suddenly he's got a neck injury, and they're saying he might be out for the rest of the year. It's awfully unbelievable. Awfully unbelievable that the guy who meets the media and stands there looking perfectly fine in the post-game press conference suddenly has a neck injury. Maybe it's just a coincidence, but I find it awfully difficult to believe that suddenly Joe Flacco has a neck injury that's not going to allow him to play. Brandon Allen, by the way, is starting now for the Denver Broncos because I don't think Drew Lock is back healthy enough to start because of his injury. And so as a result, if the Browns can't beat Brandon Allen and the Broncos, my God, the Browns might need to go ahead and hang up their franchise. We talked about the Bucs and the Titans. Not a lot to pick up from the Lions game. Chargers get the win over the Bears when Eddie Pinheiro misses a field goal. Let me tell you this. I don't know. Mitch Trubisky's going to start for another week. But this has gotten really ugly in Chicago. Did you guys see the storyline of a kid? They put him on the Jumbotron, dressed up for Halloween as Mitch Trubisky, and the entire stadium booed him. The Mitch Trubisky situation is so ugly in Chicago right now, particularly because it's not only that Mitch Trubisky stinks and this whole Bears offense stinks, it's that Mitch Trubisky was traded up for when DeShaun Watson and when Patrick Mahomes were still available in the draft. You're not always a function of exactly what you do in the NFL. You're also a function of the other quarterbacks taken around you. And Bear fans are sitting, and I don't blame them, fairly thinking, wait a minute, if only we had gotten Patrick Mahomes or Deshaun Watson, we would be a Super Bowl caliber winning team. Instead, we got Mitch Trubisky, and this is done, and we're going to have to go back into the draft and get somebody new all over again. The Eagles. How about the Eagles taking it to the Bills? This is why I don't buy the Bills as a legit threat in the AFC playoffs. Their offense is just not good enough. Their schedule gets a lot easier, infinitely easier going forward. But the problem in general, regardless for what you think of the Bills is, I'm not sold on Josh Allen. I'm not sold on this offense. I don't think they're going to be able to score enough to ever make a threat. Now, as I said earlier, the two AFC wildcard teams right now, if the season ended today, are the Bills, who would be the 5 seed, and the Texans, who would be the 6 seed. This is a major issue for the Bills going forward. They got a great, fantastic defense. They can't score. Not going to be good enough to get into the postseason and actually be able to win a game. Finally, the Seahawks won, but the Seahawks have all sorts of issues. The NFC is stacked. I don't exactly understand why it always seems like the Seahawks are underusing Russell Wilson, but they gave up almost 500 yards passing to Matt Schaub, who a lot of you are probably like, wait a minute, Matt Schaub is still in the league? I had absolutely no idea that was the case. Yes, it is in fact still the case. And so I am intrigued to see exactly how this goes going forward. All right. That is the entirety, I believe, of my NFL breakdown. I'll give you top 5, bottom 5 tomorrow morning. Finally, I don't know how many of you saw this. I didn't even see it till this morning. Major League Baseball last night, 2 girls behind home plate at the Astros-Nationals Game 5 in D.C. decide to flash their boobs. God bless America. God bless God bless boobs. God bless Mom, Apple Pie, the bald eagle, everything that is great. It's the greatest 7th inning in the history of baseball. I put up a fun poll question. I said, how many of you would watch more baseball if every game in the crowd an attractive woman decided to flash her boobs? Over 20,000 of you voted, and 85% of you said you would watch more Major League Baseball if a girl was going to flash her boobs in the crowd every single game. Now, I got to say this. Major League Baseball has issued an indefinite suspension of these women. If they really want to take it to the next level, they should travel down to Houston, be great Americans, go in dressed in costumes for Halloween, and flash their boobs again down in the great state of Texas. Don't allow Major League Baseball to tell you that you can't show your boobs if you're a good-looking woman and you want to go watch baseball. All of America is behind you, except for CNN, where I'm still banned for life. I have empathy for these women because I got banned for life for saying I believe in the First Amendment and boobs. They got banned for indefinitely suspended, whatever that means, for flashing their boobs there as well. I love all of you. My name is Clay Travis. I hope all of you are having a great Halloween week. DBAP unless you need to SBAP. I will talk to you on Lock It In here in a little bit. Your boy's the king. I hit on some big picks. By the way, didn't talk a lot about him, but how about Tennessee? Jeremy Pruitt left for dead. Jeremy Pruitt left for dead. I haven't even told you my SEC power rankings. Let me do it right here. I meant to do that earlier. SEC power rankings 1 to 14. All right, this guy sounds like a loser, and he is going to be gone forever. If I happen to look over and I think to myself, this guy's a loser, you are banned forever, and Clay Kyle is going to slide through. Don't read most of the mentions, but if I look at your name and I see it, I think to myself, you are a total loser. You're gone forever. SEC power rankings. LSU is the best team in the SEC. Alabama, second best team in the SEC. Florida, third best team in the SEC. Georgia Bulldogs, I've got in the 4 spot. Auburn, 5. That's a pretty easy top 5. I don't think most people would disagree with my top 5 in the SEC. Texas A&M, I have got at the 6th spot. It starts to get more difficult after the top 5. Texas A&M is 6. Tennessee is the 7th best team in the SEC. There was a lot of criticism of Jeremy Pruitt early, but I'm starting to love the way this guy's got his team playing. They are tough. They are physical. They are improving drastically since the start of October. I think they're going to get bowl eligible, should beat UAB this weekend. Then I think they will beat Kentucky. They have a decent chance to beat Missouri as well, who has just fallen apart the last 2 weeks. And then I think they'll certainly beat Vanderbilt. 6-6 is in play. 7-5 is a possibility, which would be a hell of a turnaround given where this team started. So I am loving the way this Tennessee football team is playing. In the 8 spot, I've got South Carolina. Got them there because they at least beat Georgia. 9 spot, Kentucky. 10 spot, Missouri. Ole Miss, I've got at 11. Mississippi State, I've got at 12. Vanderbilt, I've got at 13. And Arkansas, you poor Razorback fans, I have got you guys at the 14th best team in the SEC. Okay, love you, DBAP unless you need to SBAP. My name is Clay Travis. This has been Outkick the Show. Kisses. See y'all. Bye. All right, thank you, Facebook. Love y'all.